Okay. What do you say? Let's do some predictions, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, we will. And I again, no disrespect to these areas or to some of these teams or some of these classifications rather, but it is different when you don't have a lot of teams in your coverage area that play in those classes. For example, Class C. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up. Class C, Timberlake, Tyrone, Tipton is gone. So Timberlake, Tyrone, Mountain View, Gotebo, Medford, and Buffalo are the top five according to Austin Chadwick and Mark Rogers with Vibe. Sisakwa is right behind them, and Sisakwa was a team that I saw in the playoffs last year, and they played with a lot of fight and gave Tipton a run for their money there for a while.
They hung 70-plus on Claremore Christian last year.
Yeah, and they've got a really good player coming back in Thomas Romph, who I think scored 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game. Got to be honest, though, don't know a ton about a lot of these schools. Mountain View, Gotebo was in our coverage area. We don't cover them just a ton anymore because it's a little far out there. It's hard for me to have a really great feel for this, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go with Southwest Oklahoma. I'm going to have Mountain View, Gotebo. I will have them losing the state title game to Timberlake.
Okay. Yeah, when I was looking at these 8-man teams, it's just so hard to get information on, who they have coming back and what to expect, because there's so much turnover at those small schools, so you just never know. And in the Vite magazine, you like to see when they say they have this many players coming back and stats thrown in there. But with a lot of those this year, there weren't any stats. There wasn't a lot of, returning starters that were mentioned. So, I just had to kind of take an average ranking of like Vite, Max Preps, and OK Preps. So I just kind of took the average of those, and then that's how I ranked my top 5. That's the only thing that I could really do, just because I had such little information. And in that, Buffalo came out as the number 1 team. So I'm just going to have to go with Buffalo to take Class C this year. I mean, I have really no idea when it comes to the smaller schools, but that's who I'm going to go with for my champion.
And that's again, just from my time covering or keeping tabs on Tipton, Buffalo was definitely a school that you heard of every single year. So I think they're definitely a program that's used to that, that limelight. Another team that I kind of forgot about that isn't in Class C anymore that also moved up, not just Tipton, but Pond Creek Hunter, the defending state champs, move up to Class C, where you also have Laverne, Shattuck, Cherokee, the Snyder Cycle. Sorry?
Did Southwest Covenant also move up? I thought I saw them move up as well.
Yes. In fact, they're in the same district as Ellick and Velma Alma. And
so
that's
all the top Class C teams are now in Class B.
Yeah, I think if you're Buffalo and Timberlake, you're just rubbing your hands together, man. It's our time. And when the cat is away, or whatever the saying is, but Class B, again, like I said earlier, the old Ric Flair principle, man. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And right now, Shattuck is the Rolex wearing. You probably, I know it was a little before your time, but you're more the wrestling fan. They're the Rolex wearing son of a gun right now, and I think Shattuck wins. I do like Cherokee. I think they bring back a lot, and again, Laverne and Pond Creek Hunter, I think, are always going to be really good. And don't sleep on Snyder and Tipton. I think are both going to be very good. Waurika, I think, is going to be really good. That district at the top is going to be difficult. You could see Tipton possibly finishing 3rd in that district, and which seems crazy to say, but again, when you lose players like Lane Chandler and Jeremiah Smith, that happens. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Shattuck over Cherokee.
Yeah, like I said, this is where Barnsdall comes in, because like I said, I ranked them number one in Class B. Um, I would very much like to pick them to win the state title, but at the same time, I think if you took Shattuck and turned them into a Class A team, I think that they'd be a pretty decent Class A team. That's just what Shattuck brings to the table. So I'm gonna kind of somewhat try to remedy my disrespect for Shattuck in my initial preseason rankings and go ahead and say that Shattuck will take the Class B crown this year.
Gotcha. No, that's yeah. Again, I think they've proven until you've been proven wrong. I think you're still right. We go to Class A, and Cashin. Well, Ringling was is the defending state champion.
They
Cashin.
kind of surprised me.
What's that?
They kind of surprised me. I know they had a really good record, but I just never really expected Ringling to make that jump.
They had a dominating defense from what I had heard. I didn't get to cover them last year. They're kind of just outside of our coverage area these days. And I do know that Kyle Weatherly, our good friend from KSWO Channel 7, he covered them. And I remember heading into the playoffs asking him if there were any teams in the coverage area that he thought could give, take a run at a state title. And he goes, oh, I think Ringling. He goes, Ringling's probably our best team left. And I think they also covered Waurika, but he definitely said Ringling was one of the teams. And again, a team that lost quite a bit, but they still bring back a guy like Cash Lyle. And I think Cashin is still the team to beat. I just know that they have a great program. As for runner-up, because that's what I'm doing apparently, is picking my state championship games, because why not? Maybe I just like his story and like their story or like their uniforms. Give me Bryce, the Pioneer Man Drummond, the Pioneer Boy, I guess, I don't know, and the Pawhuska Huskies. I think they can make a run at the state title. I think it's so rare to find a guy that can sling the pigskin like he does at that level. You have so many teams that run these, slot T flexbone offenses because it's kind of what you need because you just maybe don't have the athletes to. It's sometimes hard to find a quarterback in a school of 55 boys or whatever. I think that Pawhuska can make a real run at it. I think Thomas is going to be really good, and again, Ringling. There's no reason to think that they can't be right there in the mix again.
Right, and I like the Pawhuska pick. I really do. And I heard that that Drummond kid's brother is pretty good too. I read that over the weekend because they hosted their Pioneer Woman Classic or something like that. I was like, now that's just straight up cool right there.
Yeah.
Getting mom involved. That's just cool in my opinion. But I think it might be a little too good to be true. I don't know exactly how the bracket will fall out with the districts and everything, but just looking at Cashin, I think they have 6 offensive guys returning. They have 9 on defense. They've just been so close. It seems like they've been the favorite to win the last 2 years, and they just haven't been able to get over hump. I think this is their year. I'm going with Cashin to get Class A, but I do like Pawhuska. I did rank Pawhuska number 1 in my preseason poll, and I put Cashin number 2, but I'm going to go with Cashin to win the title.
I think it's still been ingrained in my brain that Cashin won a state title in like the past 2 or 3 seasons, but I don't think they did. It was like that one season where they were incredible.
I think I lost you.
Oh, did I lose you there? Okay. Well, I can hear you there. Okay, there we are. But I can't remember if Cashin. It feels like it felt like Cashin had won a state title, but I don't think that it's just like ingrained in my brain because they were really good that one season. And I think that was the year that Tonkawa came out and won the state title. But yeah, I think Cashin's a program that just continues to just get better and definitely one of the powerhouses in the Class A ranks. Class 2A or Class 2A, I think this is pretty obvious. One of two. I mean, you could easily pick 3 or 4 teams and nobody would like make fun of you. But I think if it's one of 2 teams, if it's not one of these 2 teams to raise the gold ball, I'm going to be shocked. I'm going to be very surprised. I think it's Beggs and Bayan, and I have flip-flopped back and forth on who I think will win a game like that. We nearly had it last year because Beggs, you know, if they'd gotten past Metro Christian in the semis, we would have had Beggs versus Bayan. You've got Beggs, which is more kind of the speedy team, and Bayan, just big, bruising guys with guys like Solomon Wright and Javin Wright. And I think it's Beggs' year. I really do. And, you know, they came close. I guess it was 2 years ago. I believe they lost to Sperry. And, you know, I really think with Kendall Daniels and C.J. Brown, who's going to be a guy that people talk about in a couple of years too, I think they're going to be a team that I don't know if they necessarily roll through 2A, but they're going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah, and this is the same with me. I think it's Bayan and Beggs, and then everybody else. You know, and Bayan, they played what was that Christian last year? Is that in 2A?
What's that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was Bayan versus Metro Christian
Correct.
in the title game last year. Bayan played them tough, and I was actually really hoping that Bayan would beat Metro, you know, just to give some of the public schools, you know, a shot, because Class 3A was littered with those private schools. But I'm gonna go with Bayan to take down Beggs, and you know, I don't know if that would be in the state title game or in the semifinals or wherever that might end up being. But I like Bayan to win Class 2A this year.
We go to Class 3A, and, you know, you mentioned that Lincoln Christian had lost quite a bit, and yet they were still ranked number 2 by VIPE. I do think that there is a clear favorite in Class 3A, and it's the team with some unfinished business that, again, much like Cashin a couple years ago, it still feels like Heritage Hall won a state title last year, but they didn't. And that's just how good that team was. And I think it's Heritage Hall. And I'll tell you what, I think the team that might end up playing them for a state title, give me Perkins Tryon, baby. I really like what the Demons have coming back. And just going to give a shout out to the local team. Man, you want to talk about, and they're also in the same district, which is bonkers. And was talking about this to somebody recently, is local shout out was Anadarko drops down from 4A to 3A. And it's a good news, bad news situation for the Warriors, because the good news is you know, Kent Jackson returns to the sidelines as head coach, the guy who led them to 2 state titles, built just a powerhouse there. He was semi-retired there for a couple of years. He comes back to coach. And the other good news is that you have a couple of teams in your district like McLeod, Douglas, and Mount St. Mary that I think those are very winnable games. And then Bridge Creek, you know, I think the good news is I think it's set up for you to have a shot, really good shot at making the playoffs. The bad news is 4th place is probably the best you're going to get, because you're in a district with Heritage Hall, Perkins Tryon, and Kingfisher. And God bless your soul. That's tough.
That is tough. So you're going with Heritage Hall?
I'm going with Heritage Hall over Perkins Tryon.
Yeah, I'm you know, I think that it would be silly to pick anybody but Heritage Hall at this point to win the Class 3A state title, just with Lincoln Christian losing so much. But yeah, I'm going with Heritage Hall as well. I too like Perkins Tryon, because that's another Stillwater area team that I covered a couple times at the Stillwater News Press. So I like them, but I don't like them as much as I like Verdigris, which is one of my area teams in the Claremore area, because Verdigris handled Perkins Tryon fairly easily in the quarterfinals last year. Kind of took me by surprise, and probably most of the state by surprise, just based on how Perkins Tryon had been playing. And both teams returned about the same amount of starters. So I like I would like Verdigris to have a better shot than Perkins Tryon this year, but I think it's still futile because Heritage Hall is gonna run away with it, I think.
Yeah, Verdigris, again, that's another program that I think people are sleeping on. And you obviously know these players better than I do, but I'm looking through the Vibe magazine, and they're giving a lot of credit to a guy like Evan Rains. 6'3", 225 at the 3A level. I mean, that's you'll find those guys here and there, but if you have a big enough dude that can wreak havoc on a quarterback, that can do a lot. And obviously they have a bunch of other players too, but I'm just again, this is why I enjoy this, because I'm learning about the east side of the state, because I'm tucked away in my own little corner of the universe down here. But Class 4A is where it gets really interesting for me.
Just a second, I want to add one more thing about
Yes.
Class 3A. So I've been seeing Holland Hall; they're getting a lot of love in the preseason rankings. They move up from Class 2A.
Mm-hmm.
But another team, a surprise team that I think that a lot of people might be overlooking is Kingston, because they are also moving up from Class 2A. They made it deep in the playoffs last year, and they return 10 starters, I think, on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, or 8. They return 8 starters on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, like, that's pretty good right there. And I think that they could have competed with Holland Hall easily last year. So I think Kingston might be getting a little overlooked. So, so look for them to also make a run at things.
And again, similar to some of those other districts we talked about, that's a district where you've got Lone Grove, Plainview, and Sulphur all in your same district. I mean, that's hellacious. And I don't think Plainview will be quite what they were last year, because you lose a couple of guys who go on to play in the Big 12. But I mean, Sulphur's always going to be really good. And Plainview, played for a state title last year. And so that is – and Lone Grove is in there too. And that's going to be tough for Kingston. Again, once you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen. But Class 4A is where it gets really interesting for me, because it feels like, much like March Madness, when it comes to voting for these things, we always seem to just go with the chalk or go with what we know. But as I mentioned, Poto loses a lot from last year, and a lot of people are putting a lot of stock in Wagner and in Weatherford especially. And Weatherford, I think, is going to be very interesting to watch, because obviously everybody knows about Ethan Downs. I think most people have known about Ethan Downs since he was like 14 years old. And Sam Hoffman, though, is their running back. He ran for over 1,000 yards last year. I do like the Eagles. I still think Wagner wins the state title. I think it'll be Wagner over Weatherford. And I think that's going to be very – that Weatherford-Poto state title game last year was, I think the final score was like 7-3. You could see something similar to that again this year. I think both teams are very smash mouth, just shove it down your throat.
Yeah, and Wagner, I'm gonna have to go with them as well. And I actually get to see them on Thursday, because they are coming to Claremore to scrimmage the Zebras in a half game. So that'll be it. So that'll be good. It'll give me kind of an idea of what to expect from them. But the Claremore coach told me that Wagner returns 19 players this year. I mean, that's just tough to beat. And Wagner is always one of the best teams in Class 4A. But like you mentioned, Weatherford, Ethan Downs, they're going to be up there again. But one team that I'm looking at too that could very easily win the title this year, and I would not be shocked at all, is SpOKen, because they moved down from Class 5A. And I saw them last year. They beat Claremore. They had some good games. They ended up missing the playoffs thanks to a crazy 3-way tiebreaker. But they're good. They return, let's see what I have here. They return 6 offensive players and 9 defensive players. And I mean, SpOKen is just a stout team. They're punching in the mouth, run the ball down your throat kind of team. Their defense is very strong, doesn't allow a whole lot. So it would not surprise me whatsoever to see SpOKen win Class 4A in their first year.
Yeah, no, that is one thing that didn't even cross my mind as I was voting and looking at those Class 4A rankings. I don't know why. Yeah, that Sky took. I just always associated them with 5A, and now that they're in 4A, that definitely could be a team to watch for sure. We go up to Class 5A, and I guess we'll let you. Do you want to go put on your old Letterman jacket or what? Or I'll let you be a homer. Try not to rub it in too much. How many state titles you have, but yeah, your Carl Albert Titans, man. I don't see anybody beating them. I really don't, and I don't even know if they lose a regular season game, even though that's probably the best thing to happen to them last year. Was I think it kind of woke them up, and of course, they just destroyed people from then on. We've talked about El Reno. I I can't get out of my head the fact that they lost to MacArthur in the final week of the season, and 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 nothing against MacArthur. It was just that was a game that, for all intents and purposes, if you play that game on paper, El Reno wins every time. And they had too many head scratching moments for me last year. Plenty of talent, but talent alone, I don't think is necessarily gonna get you to a state title. I think when I voted for when I did my voting in the AP poll, I think I might have initially had them number 2, but then I think I switched them. I think I put Bishop Kelly. I think Bishop Kelly returns quite a bit. Obviously, they lose a guy like Zach Middleton, but they did return. I'm looking at Colin Morrison. They return it. And Owen Heineke is a 6'2", 190-pound safety. I mean, they return a bunch of guys. They're going to be tough on defense. And then, again, no offense to the east side of the state in Class 5A, but it's going to be, once you get to the playoffs, I think then we'll really see how good they are. I know in the past you kind of questioned teams like Tahlequah and stuff like that because you don't know based on strength of schedule. Well, Bishop Kelly's going to get to play Edison, McAllister, and Coweta, and those might be – and obviously they're going to play that early season game I was talking about where they play where did I say they were going to play? Poto, yes. We will see. I think we'll learn a lot about them. But again, once you get to playing the teams from the OKC Metro, I think that's where we're going to learn a lot about them. Don't sleep on a team like Noble. I think Noble's going to be really good. McGinnis, I just shrug emoji. I don't know what to think about them. I tell you what, man. I'm obviously, obviously going to pick Carl Albert, but I think in terms of who they might play there, I'll go with Bishop Kelly. I think it could very well be Noble. It could be El Reno. It might be McGinnis again. Piedmont is a team that really jumped on people last year. I don't know if you're going to have that surprise factor now, and I don't know. I think it's going to be treacherous, territory for them, and hopefully that coach didn't have a sophomore slump. I don't think he will, but I think that the bar has been raised for Piedmont football for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to make a 12 Days of Christmas reference here, but it's going to be 5 golden rings for Carl Albert this year. They're going to win the 5th straight. I don't really see, like you mentioned, some of these other teams have the talent, but it just seems like everyone is just 1 or 2 steps behind the Titans every year. And you look at some of these East Side teams, like you said, like it looks like they're really good, but then whenever they play, a Bishop McGinnis or somebody like that, it just seems like they just get, they get stomped. Like last year, Tahlequah was, they went 9-1 in the regular season. I made it public. I was never really high on Tahlequah last year, and then they get to the first round. Their quarterback was hurt. He got hurt against Claremore in Week 10, so that's understandable. They got blown out by Coweta, which is another East Side team in the first round. But then Coweta turns around in the second round of the playoffs, and I think Piedmont hung like 60 on them. So, you know, like you just don't know what those East teams can bring. Bishop Kelly probably has the best chance. I'm a little cool on them to begin the season, though, because they do got some holes on defense. So I think that could be a problem. And they gave up some points last year to teams like McAllister, who's also in their district. So, just talking about some other East Side teams that I think could possibly make some noise. Coweta, you know, I saw them this last Friday. They got a lot coming back. I think they have 9 players on both sides of the ball. That's always a good thing. And their quarterback, he's only a junior. I mean, just looking at him, he had to be like 6'4", 6'5", and I mean, he has a lot of foot speed. And I mean, he dropped back, tuck it, 50 yards up the middle untouched. I mean, the dude is quick. I think that he can definitely make some noise. And another team I think some people might be looking over is SpOKen. You know, they moved down from Class 6A2. You know, yeah, they don't have the Division I quarterback who went to TCU anymore. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's gone. But he was hurt half the year, and the quarterback who replaced him is back. And Kazon Taft, their star running back, he's back. You know, so I think that SpOKen is going to be hungry. I saw that they already didn't like that they were disrespecting the OKPreps.com preseason top 10. They were left out of it, so they already have they're already looking to prove themselves. So I think SpOKen is another one to look out for. You know, one of those bigger schools coming down the ranks to Class 5A. So, but again, I just don't think that anybody can really take down Carl Albert. I do think that Del City has a pretty good chance to beat Carl Albert in the regular season, but you know, Del City's 6A2, so they don't have anything to worry about there. So
yeah, and what gets me, and the great programs do this, is Carl Albert. And by the way, can we just mention how remarkable it would be? Not that I need to stroke your ego on this or anything, but you were talking about 5 straight state titles. The last time that happened in Class 5A was in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was Carl Albert. And it's like it's bonkers that you could have 2 such streaks in you know, just over a 2-decade period. And
J.D. Runnels was on those teams. If you remember him, he was a fullback at FU for a while. So.
Oh yeah, that's it's going to be very interesting. And what gets me about that program is, you know, the old adage that they don't rebuild, they reload. It's so true. I mean, you know, I initially, whenever they lost Dadrian Rabbit Taylor a couple of years ago, I was like, well, I don't know who you're going to have at running back. Well, then Javion Hunt, you know, becomes the guy. And you got Buddy Bazell. You got a quarterback who's been there for 4 years. I saw him as a freshman. And
yeah, I saw him in his first game because they came down and played Lawton High.
That's right.
And lost by 1 point to or Carl Albert beat Lawton High by 1 point. That was a classic game. Yeah. That was Ben Harris's first game as a quarterback. So it's crazy to think that he's still in school because it feels like that was such a long time ago. But.
Yeah, and Ben Harris is a guy. Again, I'm not a recruiter. I'm not a scout for good reason, I guess. But Ben Harris is a guy that I just assumed, you know, 6'1", good build, leader, experience. I just didn't understand why he hasn't gotten more love from a recruiting standpoint. It's, you know, I know he might not have the strongest arm in the world, but I mean, you don't need to have a rocket launcher attached to your shoulder to be a good quarterback. And I think he's going to be a guy. I mean, that whole team is outstanding. But yeah, I mean, and I'm selling him short. Actually, the list him is 6'2". But that kid is phenomenal, and I think people will look back on his career as one that you're just going to remember him as a winner. He'll have been a part of, if things go to plan for the Titans this year, you know, he'll have been a part of 4 state titles, and not too many kids can say that. And, just, yeah, I was blanking on the coach's name, for Coach Corley, what he's done, it is very Lincoln Riley-esque when you take over for Gary Rose. And it's just, the train doesn't stop moving, man. You just hope to not get run over by it. And,
and I got to tell you, it couldn't happen to a better guy. Coach Corley was always one of my favorite, teacher slash coach figure when I was at Carl Albert. He wasn't like a cocky, arrogant kind of guy who knew, that he was part of all the success that was coming through Carl Albert. He's a decent guy. He had a great story in 2012. That was my senior year at Carl Albert. He was diagnosed with cancer. The team started 1-5. Then he came back. He was the defensive coordinator, I think, at the time. He came back after the 1-5 start. Got rid of the cancer, beat the cancer, and then Carl Albert went on this crazy run, won like 8 straight games, ended up winning the state title after starting 1-5. It was incredible, movie-worthy, really. I really wish that some movie studio would pick this up because it's absolutely incredible. Has that Friday Night Lights feel to it, that could really blow up nationwide if people knew about that story. So couldn't happen to a better guy. I was really happy when they hired him a couple years ago when Coach Rose retired. So, always glad to see success for my alma mater, and I expect that to continue this year.
Yeah, it's always good to see good things happen to good people, and it's just it's really good to see that happen. And I mentioned Ben Harris being one of those guys who we're just gonna maybe doesn't get a ton of love in terms of recruiting, but he's going to go down as a winner and as a guy with a ton of stats. And you can say a lot of the same things about the quarterback of the 2-time defending and I guess 5 out of 6 of the state 6A or Class 6A Division II state champion Bixby Spartans. Mason Williams, he's 5'11". Yeah, he's only 180 pounds. That guy knows the system and he knows how to work it. And you lose Brennan Presley. Well, guess what? His brother is almost just as fast. And again, I think it's going to be death, taxes, and Bixby winning 6A Division II. I think it's just things that we accept as fact in our world. And I, as much as I would love to pick somebody like a Del City or maybe Booker T, I do think Stillwater has enough pieces around Quantrell Walker to get back to the state title game. I don't know if Tucker Barnard's boys get it done. I do think it's still Bixby's world, and everyone else is just living in it.
And I can't blame you for that take. Bixby has more than proven themselves and always reload. But I just look at their numbers. For returning on offense, obviously it's big to have the Mason kid coming back, but then they only have 2 defensive starters coming back, and that's big to me, especially when you have teams that like a Stillwater that brings so much talent back, like Quantrell Walker, like you mentioned. So, I picked my alma mater to win Class 5A, so I'm going to pick my wife's alma mater to win 6A too. I'm going Stillwater Pioneers. This is their year. I've been telling my brother-in-law, he was a part of some of those Stillwater teams that got beat by Bixby in the playoffs the last couple of years. I told him I think that this is Stillwater's year. I'm going with the Pioneers to dethrone Bixby.
And that would be huge. And if I was gonna tease you for getting out your CA Letterman jacket, I honestly think I might still have a Stillwater Pioneer football sweatshirt somewhere in my house from when I covered them in college. Tucker Barnard hooked us up, and
you're not supposed to accept gifts as media. What are you doing?
I worked for the team. No, it's and again, you talk about good things happening to good people. I always loved working with Coach Barnard. Super nice guy, cared about the kids. And it's really good. That was one of the most difficult things when I covered the team, was seeing them put in that work, and then whether it was injuries or just bad breaks or just whatever it was, I think they won a total of 5 games in the 2 years I covered them. And now they're 5-0 halfway through the season. It's just crazy to me, and that program has certainly come a long way. Finally, we go to the big boys, Class 6A Division I, and usually it's kind of, okay, which of the big four schools is it going to be this year? And I still think that's the case, but I tell you what, if there was ever a year for a West Side team to make a run, I think Edmond Santa Fe could be that team this year. I don't. They bring back a lot of talent. They've got a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball that are getting recruited heavily. Obviously, Colin Oliver's committed to Oklahoma State, but the name to know, and I think a lot of people in the know already are familiar. And I hope I'm saying this name right. Talon Shetron, the wide receiver, 6'4", 180 pounds, just a junior, and he's getting recruited by just about everybody. I think A&M, Texas, OU, Auburn, LSU. I think they've all offered him, and he's going to go wherever he wants at this point. But again, that's not until next year because he's only a junior, and which is nuts. It's almost like I've watched highlights of him. It's almost like watching, somebody like AJ Green with the Cincinnati Bengals, or like a Julio Jones at the high school level. And I'm not saying that he's going to be that necessarily. I don't want to set up unrealistic expectations for a 16-year-old, but that's a team that I think could cause a lot of damage. At the end of the day, though, I go with the teams that have been there. I'm going to go ahead, and I think in my rankings, my AP, I think I picked Jinx number 1 and Owasso, the defending state champs, number 2. Jinx, I just think, they've got an experienced quarterback. They've got a big left tackle to protect him in Logan Nobles. And they're going to play good defense most of the time. And that's just a program that knows how to get it done. And I wish I had a better explanation, but I feel like that's all I need is they've been there, they can do it. And I feel like this will be Jinx, and which is crazy. I forgot that they won 4 straight titles. This will be their first state title in 5 years. And it would be the first time in 4 years that somebody other than Owasso or Broken Arrow won it, which is wild to think about considering the 20-plus year streak we were on there for a while with Union and Jinx.
Yeah, for a while I thought that would never end, so I was stoked when Owasso won. And I know the debate is always East versus West, but to me it was always everybody versus Jinx and Union. You just had to beat Jinx and Union. That was the deal. But I honestly I don't know who is going to win 6A1 because I look at Owasso, I look at Broken Arrow, I look at Jinx, I look at Union. It's honestly just a toss-up. I have absolutely no clue who to pick because they all return so much. Even now, because I switched my rankings around so much. At first, I had Owasso on the bottom end of that, but then I heard that even though they lost some starters, a lot of the guys they have coming back played a lot anyway. 16 guys with experience coming back. That's huge. Especially with a coach like they have, who's proven that he can get it done wherever he is. So then I switched it. So I think I ended up voting Owasso number 1 in my rankings just because they're defending champion. They have the proven coach, but I don't know if I feel comfortable picking a champion. I know that's kind of a cop out, but I just got to see. I got to see him play first because Owasso, Broken Arrow, Jinx, and Union, I just feel like those 4 schools are just so evenly matched because Jinx brings back their star quarterback and a lot of other guys. I think they returned 5 on offense and 8 on defense. That's good for Jinx. And then you got Broken Arrow. They returned 5 on defense and several more on offense, including their starting quarterback and starting running back. And Union, they've got studs. I know that they didn't have their greatest year last year, but a lot of their guys are back. I think that they have a good chance to make some noise and bounce back to where they have been in the past. But and speaking of West teams, one team that I just absolutely know that nobody's going to talk about is UConn. And I know that, just you look at UConn and you don't think really anything of them, but I look at them, last year they played a lot of teams really, really close. Their record doesn't accurately reflect how good they were. They had a lot of they had a 1 point loss to Westmore. I know because I was listening to that one on the radio, and I mean they had Westmore beat and just kind of slipped up at the end. And I think they played Broken Arrow close. I might be wrong. I haven't looked it up exactly, but and then I remember the radio guy saying that all of their starters were sophomores. Like they had one senior starter on a 6A1 team. So all those guys are back. So I think UConn is a team that people might be sleeping on. Now, do I think that they're going to compete for a state title? No, I don't think so. But I think they're a team that could push some of those teams at the top of our list that people might not be looking at. Obviously, Edmond Santa Fe is a trendy pick, and Mustang was until they got beat 27-0 by Choctaw in that scrimmage the other day. And I don't know. Maybe they were playing their JV guys most of the time. I don't know. But that told me something about Mustangs, so now I'm not high on them. But yeah, I like UConn to be one of the top teams in the West this year. And in terms of a champion, if you put a gun to my head, I might just let you shoot.
No,
I just can't decide.
It's tough, and you bring up UConn, and I'm glad you did, man. I mean, they've got a great coach. Jeremy Reed came from. He was the one who led Altus to a state title in 2015, okay. And yeah, you bring up. I completely forgot about this, man. Yeah, they in back-to-back weeks. They put up 49 points on Westmore and 42 on Broken Arrow and lost each game by 1.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
And, and here I am talking up Edmond Santa Fe. Well, they beat Edmond Santa Fe last year. And it was only the second time, I think, in program history they had done that. And that's, Jeremy Reed is going to put a good team on that field. And I remember listening to them talk about that on a radio, I think a couple of years ago when I was out traveling to a game, and I think that was one of his might have been his first or second year at UConn, and they were starting to build things because 2016 they're 0-10, 2017 4-6, and they went 6-4 and 4-6. So I mean, 4-6 might not be a big deal to a lot of people, but I think you're right in that that's a team that. Vipe has ranked number 9, and if you're in a district that the difficulty there is you're in a district with Jenks, Santa Fe, Broken Arrow. If you can beat Westmore, if they've beaten Westmore last year, they're in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's how close they were, and who knows, man? That I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We've already been doing this for a while, but let's go ahead. We'll close out with a couple of fun picks or fun kind of exercises. I know that I've talked to Joe Bettner and Jacob Unruh about this. Like any good person, and especially good journalist, I'm a big fan of food. I love finding good places to eat. You were kind enough to take me to a really cool place in Claremore that I'm already blanking the name on. Something
Main Street Tavern.
What was it?
Main Street Tavern.
Main Street Tavern. That was excellent. It was very good. You definitely steered me right there. Are there any other restaurants in the Tulsa area that if I were up there that you would highly recommend?
So the Tulsa place, my wife Kelsey and I, we frequent this place a lot. It's called Tacos for Life. And this is another place where you get a lot of bang for your buck. So the main thing that they do is they have a lot of different taco options, and they load these things. These aren't just like these little like plain old tortillas. These are fluffy tortillas, and they have other kind of tortillas that you can choose from too. And they load these things big. I mean, eating just 2 tacos will fill you up for pretty much the entire day. My favorite is fried chicken because they put some honey on it, which is really good. And then chicken bacon ranch. That's also a really good taco that they have. And what they do is too, whenever you buy a meal, which is 2 tacos and a side, then they donate meals to third world countries. And whenever you walk in, they have this big screen and it tells you how many meals have been bought at that Tulsa location and how many meals they have been able to send worldwide because of those meals bought. So it not only are you getting a good meal, but you're also helping a good cause at the same time. So that's one of our favorite places to go for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really neat that they do that. Okay, we'll finish it up here. Favorite stadium to visit? Favorite high school stadium?
Oh, man.
And I feel like you almost have to divide it into like two different categories, because there's the ones that are just like super nice and they're nice because they're new and fancy and shiny. Then there's the ones that have like all the history and stuff.
Yeah. You know, honestly, one that always just comes back to my mind is Elmer Graham Stadium in Walters, down there by Lawton. You know, it's just like right there off the side of a road. You know, the press box isn't fancy or anything like that. There's barely any room in there. I think I had a broken chair whenever I covered a game there in 2017. It was their homecoming, and I think they played Comanche. So it was two Southwest Oklahoma teams for us playing there. But, you know, you look out on the horizon off to the south of the stadium, and it's just all farmland, you know, nothing but farmland for miles that you can see. And so it looks really nice when the sun is setting, especially. And I was there for homecoming, and the way that they escorted the royalty was just awesome. You know, they put a lifter on a tractor, and they had these kids on like a couch. So then the tractor would come and pick them up, and they're on the couch, and they just drove them off. And I was like, that is the most, you know, like country thing I've ever seen.
I think I remember, because I might have I can't remember if I saved this or not. We had a bunch of archival stuff still in the upstairs of even though it was, you know, vacated. We still had a bunch of old papers up there from the past few years. I think I had found one of those and was reading. I remember you writing about that, and I just thought, gosh, it's really neat to go to some of these smaller towns and see these communities really rally around their teams and their schools. Is there a particular uniform that jumps off the page to you? Is there it can be new, it can be kind of a classic look.
You know, to me, like, I don't really focus on the jerseys.
Cool. Well, I do. So I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, give me some of yours. You might refresh my memory.
You know, and I think one of the coaches I talked to recently brought this up. You know, Stillwater has those new yellow alternates, and the yellow alternates can sometimes be really hard on the eyes, but these somehow pull it off.
I do like those. I remember seeing them in the state title.
I tell you, one that I really like locally is Frederick. Theirs are pretty cool. Poto's got some really neat ones, and I got to be honest, I mean, selfishly from the journalist standpoint, any uniforms where the numbers are easy to read are great. Yeah. Bartlesville, shout out to my boy Evan Farbach up there. Evan Farbach and Ty Loftus with K1 in Bartlesville. Bartlesville's got some baby blues that are really nice. You know, I didn't talk about the stadiums, but you bring up a really good point. Is, you know, it's really neat to see some of those smaller schools and some of those communities and some of the very unique traditions they have. You know, Apache has their drum circle before the game. You'll have kids basically kicking field goals in warm-ups while a Native American drum circle is happening in the end zone for like 10 minutes, and which was pretty cool. The Bomber Bowl at Frederick is really neat. They the team does not show up at the stadium. They dress and get ready and everything at the high school, which is the stadium is not on campus. And so they get ready at the high school, they load up on a bus, they get basically a police escort with like the lights and everything to the stadium. They get off the bus, they've got the little tiny, it's almost like a big wheel, like a kid's little tricycle, but it's a bomber plane. And so they have a little bomber plane that the guy drives around after touchdowns, and it's got a little like siren or whirly bird or whatever. But that's a really neat atmosphere too. And then when you talk about like the nice amenity stadiums, I mean, it always that's kind of what stinks about athletics in general is you have the haves and the have-nots, and some schools just have more money than others. And I will say maybe I'm a little partial, but just from a press box perspective and from just an amenity perspective, Pioneer Stadium in Stillwater is really great. Pretty much all the Tulsa area. I mean, I've been to Union, I've been to Owasso, I can't remember if I've been to Jenks. I think I have, but it's like those all have outstanding stadiums. Broken Arrow has a great stadium. I tell you what, Taft Stadium in OKC, that was one of my favorite ones too. That was really neat. And I want to say, I can't remember the name now, but I want to say wherever Putnam City Schools was playing a couple of years ago, that one was pretty neat too. And although I don't remember much about the stadium, I got to give a shout out to your boys at Carl Albert because they had Qdoba in the press box as the courtesy.
When I was there still.
What's that?
They were doing that when I was there.
Yeah, as a courtesy meal, it bumps it up a few points.
They got a new press box now.
It's good to hear. I don't think I will be covering any games there because I want to say they come to Lawton this year to play Eisenhower. But anyway, we have talked for quite some time now. I have no idea what we might end up turning this into a two-parter. Who knows? But anyways, Kevin Green, thank you so much, my man. Always good to catch up. I feel like you and I could just talk football forever. In fact, once we shut this recording off, we might continue to talk. Who knows? And just excited for football again. Knocking on wood that things will stay safe and everybody will wear masks and practice social distancing. And let's get ready for some football, man.
Yes, I'm too ready. I'm probably too ready for this.
Gonna jump out of his skin come Thursday evening.
Right.
But anyways, and if you're in the Tulsa area, you can check out Kevin's work in the Claremore Progress or follow him on Twitter. And Kevin, again, thank you so much, man. And we look forward to possibly having you on here again.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Sweet. All right. Well, for SpOKen Freely, I'm Glenn Brockenbush. We will see you next time.